Nah. And I was just watching a video by Endless Curtis, and he was talking about Victor Galenko being the chief vibe typer. And I thought that was very if you mention that you're if you basically talk a decent amount in the interview, he's going to say you're an extrovert. He asked me what I did for work. I deliver boxes 150 times a day for work, which is a very physical job. It's very sensate. And so naturally you would correlate that with being a sensation type. Which in concept is just very funny. So these are very generic ways to type people. And obviously he typed me an SLE. So I think the jury is still out about whether Victor Galenko is good at typing or not. To me, he seems more of a theorist and has more valuable contributions to the theory of socionics, arguably. I mean, he has a decent amount of written material and lectures on socionics. And there's certain aspects of Model G that I find interesting. Other aspects, not so much. Social mission block is kind of an interesting idea that an SLE, for example, would bring SC and TE to the world. It's like your social mission block is basically what you produce the most for society. And so because SC, the lead, and TE, the demonstrative functions, are both four-dimensional, then that's what you're going to provide to society the most, because there's a lot of output in the lead and the demonstrative. There's wide application. And if you have a lot of output in something and wide application in something, that means that you or someone else will benefit greatly from that. Obviously, it has wide application and you're strong at it. Whatever skill set that is means that other people are going to be blessed by you. Right? So, but you get into semantics, and this is kind of what 19 people are watching. Absolutely not true. There's no way. Dude, these bots are getting out of hand. This is the semantic point of difference that Jack and Lamb Sauce had when they were arguing about Model G, which was, why would your mission to society include an element or a function you don't value? That was kind of Jack's point, which I think is somewhat fair. I think you could debate it, so you could just say that your mission simply entails that which you're strong at doing, because if you're weak in a certain skill or function specifically, that doesn't seem like that's your mission if you suck at it. You can't say, my mission is to bring ideas to the world and have 1 D and E, right? Then that's definitely not your mission. So your social mission would always at least entail being strong in a certain function or information element, obviously. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have strength and value per se. That's the way that I would argue it if I were to. But then there's counters to that. Why are you taking on a mission that you don't actually care about? You don't care about producing effective things for, effective output for society, or making things more efficient and productive, whatever the case is. Anything that relates to TE If it's your demonstrative, you don't actually care about that information enough to integrate it as a mission. So you could use that as an argument. But my point is that there are certain things in Model G, I guess more at a theoretical level, that are interesting, I guess you could say, to think about. I don't know how much productive value it brings in terms of typing people. But yeah, Victor Galenko does type people very generically and uses a very generic method. I mean, again, he just basically looked at me and said, you look like an SLE. Because SLEs look black. I don't know. Like, it's like, okay. He's like, oh, you deliver box to house. Sensation. Boom. So, what else? Yeah, I just got on here to kind of spurg a little bit. I don't really have anything else. I'm trying to think what else I could talk about. But, I mean, all typing comes down to that. Balancing the two worlds, one, or methods, one being just a pre-existing structure that you have used to funnel observations into. This person functions this way, or exhibits these traits that are associated with this element or function or whatever, and you slide them into a box. So it's categorical, structural, whatever. And you have one that's just merely observation, and you make sets of you create pools of data, and then from that data you can kind of correspond that with a likely type, or it's kind of more the scientific method or inductive method, that once you've gathered enough information about people who share similarities, like cognitive similarities, then there's a pattern that emerges out of that cluster. So if you have 50 people who, I don't know, pursue manual labor as their job, they're blue-collar workers, is there any similarity between these people that you can draw out of? And in theory, it could be something like sensation, right? I'm just using this as an example, that and data analysis part of typing, and then you can do the structural, theoretical portion of typing, and you need necessarily both. Now, there's probably different ways you can go about creating both, or including both in whatever system that you have, depending on its foundations. But was this a recent typing from him? No, it was a long time ago. I got typed by Galenko in 2022, I believe, 2021, something like that. And he typed me as a what subtype? It wasn't harmonized. It was normalizing. So it's accentuated rational elements. So accentuated FI and TI, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think there's honor in a sense in the simplicity of it. Like, after reading the type profile, it wasn't that his conclusion obviously was off per se. It was more about corresponding the things that I said with the type that just weren't uber convincing as arguments for me being an SLE, because they were just too superficial. I get the extroversion introversion dichotomy and how at a very superficial level people's verbal output can signal extroversion or introversion respectively, but we know as good sociologists that it's not that simple. You could have an IEI that could ramble on about something and be amicable and gregarious and funny and whatever. And so you could just have someone that values extroverted ethics and falsely attribute that as being general extroversion, which is an MBTI tactic, obviously. Any system that correlates sociability with extroversion is always going to mistype people, right? You can think of an LIE or a TE base who obviously is an extrovert, but they're extroverted in relationship to logic, not ethics. So they may not seem as sociable as you would expect. And by an MBTI standard, they look pretty introverted, or ILEs or whatever. So, but rational, irrational, I think there's probably more to that than there would be even extroversion, introversion. I think irrational types stand out as a clear dichotomy. At least to me, but that's a signal of something, but then you still have to go through the process of seeing which rational type they are, or irrational type. So yeah, I mean, I look at it as another piece of information. Whether or not it's good information, that is another question. But you know, there's something to learn in those. In any typing session, you learn people's methodologies, you learn the system better. You can triangulate two different systems together, assuming they're socionics, and account for the margin of error, which could be a lack of information, of factual information about yourself that maybe wasn't included, or would be relevant to the typing session. That would be valuable to bring up. Maybe you forgot it. Maybe you intentionally did. Who knows? There's a variety of reasons why, in general, is a valuable endeavor. If personality theory just gives you extra information, I don't really crap. I think you can still gather something from even bad information. It just concludes that it's bad information. Then you have an argument why this shouldn't be. This is just objectively a bad method. It's fair. What Curtis was talking about. Yeah, he was. I started the video saying that I watched his video and was talking about he said he was a S tier vibe typist, which is like pretty fair. Now, if you spoke the same language as Golenko and you pressed him, could he give you a pretty robust account of the type that he gave somebody? Probably. I mean, I would imagine he could. I mean, he is a socionicist legitimately and a theorist. I would hope that you can argue the typings that you give people. If you can't, then that's a little alarming. But and I was just saying that I used my own my type session with him to validate that, because that's definitely true. It's just kind of like, you're black, I think you're an SE base. I was like, good enough for me, I guess. That's basically what he did. He's like, black, works in manual labor, kind of has an attitude, kind of a douche. We're gonna give you an SLE. I'm like, okay. Alrighty then, brother. Yeah, and he gives you a type report, whatever. Which I think that's what separates people, like good typing type services from bad ones, or from ones that are just, I mean, they're just not worth anything, actually. Like when you type somebody and you give them a report and you say, you know, you have some basic timestamps of the conversation, and you say, here you said X, Y, and Z. This corresponds to NE leading or whatever, and you go through the function of that type based on the things they said. That helps you, because then they can't say that you didn't appeal to the actual facts of the conversation. It's like, no, I'm going off of what you told me. If what you told me is wrong, the burden of proof is on you, not on me. So, and that's a point of contact. Were you intentionally misleading me in the typing session? What additional factual information could you give me now after the fact? It gives you more contact with a person in order to figure out where the discrepancy is. But I think it's good for a typist to give people that, because, again, as the person being typed, they have something objective to go off of. They have their own self-report being categorized by the typist and then put into the most likely category. And they can reference it in the future. If they're a little self-aware, they can use it as some kind of mentoring, counseling, whatever. Like, there's just more when you have a piece of paper in your hand that says, you're an SEI. Here are all the ways you demonstrated SEI-ness in the conversation. You said this, 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 and that. You know, you could upgrade it and create, you know, some kind of path of growth for the person as they move in their super id, whatever. Just give some basic theoretical areas of growth needed, right? You could say, for the ILE, you obviously need to be integrated into SI. Here's, you know, you could tier it up. You could do more, create more services that, you know, make it worth your people's while, whatever. You keep the behavior in mind, but you're primarily looking for the motivation behind the behavior. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's equal ultimacy. It's both. You can't really understand behavior absent motivation. And if motivation doesn't display itself in behavior, then it's meaningless. Like, motivation always is going to be applied externally at some level where people can see it. There has to be some application, right? So they both work together. The question is about finding out what behavior corresponds to what motivation, vice versa, whatever. If someone says they're motivated by force or whatever, SE, but they don't demonstrate that motivation, that means they're not motivated. You're not motivated enough if you don't do the thing that you claim you're motivated to do, obviously. And also, if I'm looking at your behavior and it contradicts your motivation, I'm basically saying the same thing twice, but it contradicts your motivation, I have a point to reference, right? And so you need necessarily both motivation and behavior whenever you're understanding psychology in context. If you're trying to understand criminal psychology or just general psychology, motivation and behavior are dual pairs that require both in order to get the full picture of what makes